You're like, oh, you know, like you just said, oh, maybe I'm gay or something.
Yeah, I think it can kind of like demasculinize it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for being honest, the amount of straight men that I've met who are married or whatever, oh no, I sound that sounds really wrong. No, not like that. No, but I mean, oh god.
It's just in bed.
Okay, when I've been working, the amount of straight men that have come to the club, I've got to be careful about this, when they've come to the club and they've been married or whatever, you'll be surprised at how many do actually have a thing for transsexuals. They look at them as women, but they like that whole edginess to it, and I think, you know, I mean, you will be surprised. I was in a relationship for 3.5 years, kind of am, still. I mean, we broke up when the program came out, but we're kind of dating again. But it took him a long time to figure out, you know, what he was, and then he just came out to the fact that at the end of the day, he likes me for who I am, and it doesn't matter, you know, what's between my legs. At the end of the day, you know, if you like someone, you should just be with them. And I think some men can accept that, but then some men can't because they're so scared about what other people are going to think. You know, I think it's society that needs to change, and then, you know, people will just be accepting of it. It won't be, you know, weird. I mean, you see gay people, and it's accepted, do you know what I mean? So.
What did you think about, we had another story up there, which is a recent one from last week, about medication available on the NHS to teenagers who are confused about their gender, which I think postpones their puberty.
I think that's really good.
That's a good idea.
I mean, like, that's one thing I regret, because I look at people like Kim Petras, who's the youngest transsexual in Britain,
wow.
I think, yeah, who's had the full sex change. And, you know, being honest, you know, I do get a bit envious,
right.
Especially when, you know, I was still trying so hard to get hormones. You know, I've been waiting
sure.
almost 2 years, and I've been living as female.
Sure.
I think now, you know, I'm happy with myself, and I do think it's important to get, you know, the situation sorted very young, because if you're, it's so much easier for girls to become men. If you're a boy who wants to be a girl, unless you're before puberty, you've got no chance in passing unless you have surgery. I finished my entire puberty. You know, I look at myself as 50-50, you know, I can pass and I can't. You know, I still have the masculine traits like, you know, deep voice, Adam's apple, big jawline, you know, and if I had started hormones before puberty, sure. I wouldn't have had that. Sure. And I think it's good. I think it's good that they're doing that.
And you go into schools as well. What do you think it's would be useful to have education about trans issues in school? What kind of age do you think kids should start thinking about it and talking about it? I mean, 10 secondary school?
Yeah, I would say that age, because for me, like, if you're getting educated on it, you're going to grow up and it'll be normal, and then they will educate their kids and things like that. I think it's about education.
Sure.
Once people have got it in their heads that, you know, it isn't a problem, you know, it's not a threat or anything, then it'll just become as normal as, you know, meeting gay people. You know,
absolutely.
When, you know, someone can tell you they're gay and you just tell you like, oh right then. If somebody tells you trans, you know, people seem to get like, whoa, really? You know?
I think in 10, 20 years, perhaps that will have changed to the extent that people will, it will be almost like, you know, oh, you're gay, well, you know, no one really blinks an eye at it. You think that will change?
I hope so, but I don't think it will be that.
Oh, we'll see.
Unless we fight. Fight to get, you know, like, everything.
Wow. That's maybe not a bad idea. Any more? Yes?
Talked a lot about sort of issues of acceptance within the straight community. What about the gay community? Because I've seen transsexual people suffer abuse within the gay community, which you'd kind of think if anyone's going to be understanding, it'd be people that have sort of suffered it themselves. Have you encountered that, or have you generally found that world more comfortable?
I found it more comfortable, which is why I was working in a gay bar. But having said that, you do get the odd gay guy who will be, you know, funny about it. Once the programme came out, like, everyone went against it. They said that it wasn't me, because they'd known me from the club scene, being really crazy and things like that, whereas that was, like, the realness behind me. You also get, like, I think I think it's like a triangle. You'll have transgendered on one side and gay people on the other side, and in the middle you'll have a drag queen. And that's kind of how you relate, do you know what I mean? Like, drag queens can relate to gay people, drag queens can relate to trans people. It's about the trans people and the gay people. Sometimes they can't relate because it's like, you know, they don't get it. I've had like gay guys come up to me saying, you know, you want to be a woman, but you want to be with a man, like I don't get it, you know. Again, I think it's education.
Do you think that being transgender and sexuality are two separate issues?
Yeah, I do. Like, for me, you know, I class myself as a straight woman. I like men. But you'll have Karen, who classes herself as a lesbian. You know, she likes women. Sexuality and gender are completely different things.
Because a lot of people just like pair them together, and I've heard of a lot of people saying to like trans people who say we're born female, just because you like girls doesn't mean you have to be a boy.
Yeah.
They're two separate things, and I think that's an important message to the class as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like goes a bit, you know, with that question, like, you know, some people can get confused and they're like, they don't get it. You know, I think people focus too much on sexuality. You know, like, again, straight guys who fancy transsexuals, you know, people think they're gay, and it always comes down to genitalia, and it's like, you know, I don't think I look like a man, I don't look like 100% like a woman, but I certainly don't think I look like a man. You know, I probably look better than some women. You know, I tend to make more effort there. But yeah, like, I think it's that, like, confusion.
You find out people are a bit, so I hate that we said Ollie's trans man, this is Oliver.
Yeah, I got told about your
I'm Ollie's mum, but do you, when I've spoken to
You're Ollie's mum.
I'm Ollie's mum, yeah.
This is the best mum.
Good applause to your mum. She made me cry when I watched your programme, it was amazing. I'd love to meet your mum, but anyway, that's another story. But when I've spoken to people and said that I've got a trans son, people are just obsessed with how Ollie's going to have sex with his girlfriend. Do you think that?
That is
what do you say? Because I know I get really sort of quite shirty about it and sort of say, why would you know about my son's sexual life? Because I find it really quite upsetting that people say it. So what do you say when people ask you?
I mean, like, I would just tell someone to F off at the beginning. But now it's a case of I'm quite open, you know, I don't mind talking about it. But that's the one question I get asked all the time, is about how do I have sex?
Yeah.
Like, if people find out that I'll just say I've got a boyfriend, even though, like, it's a bit complicated. If someone would find out that I had a boyfriend, the first thing they would ask is, how do you both have sex? And I'm like,
it's rude.
What's it got to do with you? How do you have sex? You know, and then it's like, I get questions like, you know, do I masturbate and things like that? And it's like, well, do you? You know, what gives you the right to ask me that? You know,
Do people ask your mum? Because as a parent, you really don't want to know what your child's doing anyway. So people ask me.
Yeah, they probably do.
Me, so I don't know. Do they say it to your mum?
They probably do, but I don't think my mum would know what to say. Like, I don't think she knows what I do. It's like,
I don't know. I'll tell you what drunken things that Ollie's his mates have come out and told me what he gets up to. But I was like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But you know, when Ollie was in relationship with his girlfriend Kat, when Ollie was a girl, now he's a boy. People didn't ask me that question then, so I don't understand why people are asking me the question now, just because he's a boy now.
I think it's because, like, it comes down to the genitals, isn't it? Like, because I'm now classing myself as a woman, if I go with a straight guy, they'll want to know why he's going out the transsexual because she doesn't have a vagina. And that's why they get confused. They're like, well, he must be gay then. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm not being funny about it, but how can he be gay? I don't look like a man. You know, again, like with Lewis hasn't had surgery, and some people would find it hard to believe that a straight woman would want to go with Lewis, and it's like, well, of course they would, because he looks like a man, you know.
Ollie and Lewis look like each other. I do.
You need a bit more beard. You're very good looking,
I've got a big patch.
I got told about you earlier.
Yeah, she said that she likes you.
Yeah, she rang me. I'm glad I met you, but yeah, I think it's, you know.
I hope I'm not asking. It's just that it's something that's really bothering me.
I don't find it a problem anymore. You know, I'm quite open. You know, if someone wants to know, I'll tell them. But the reply I give to people is, well, are you going to sleep with me? And if they say no, then I'm like, well, you don't need to know then.
It's on a need-to-know basis, and you don't.
Yeah, unless you actually want to, then you don't need to know.
Yeah. It might be appropriate for me to say, well, unless you want to sleep with him, do you want to know?
Yeah, unless you actually you're interested, don't ask me.
Yeah.
I sounded quite harsh, didn't I?
No, because it's like such a emotive subject, so it's so personal, and I find it such an intrusion when people ask me. So I just wondered, obviously, I know that people obviously ask you, but I just wondered.
Yeah, I think it's because it's unquestioned. People don't like the unquestionable. They want answers for every single thing. If they don't have answers to it, they don't like it.
But I think what you said is a very good point. I mean, you're obviously a very nice, gentle person, but you said, perhaps it's necessary to fight. Sometimes it is necessary to get angry, isn't it? Sometimes it is necessary to tell people where off and to fight.
Yeah, I think because, you out as trans, people feel that they have the right to ask you anything, and it's like, a hello would be nice, do you know what I mean? When I used to work behind the bar, people would always say, have you got a penis?
People ask about surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, as if you're public property. Yeah.
It's like, you could have asked me what I had for dinner today, Just simple questions, unless you actually know me, I don't get why they want to be personal. Unless I'm sat here having a Q&A where I'm letting people be open. To me, that's normal, but if I was out in the public and someone came up to me and was like, can I just ask you something? Do you have a penis? And I'm like,
do you?
Why? But again, I always say, I don't get why that has to justify your gender, because I always say to people, if a soldier went to war and he had his whole bottom half blown off, would that make him less of a man because he wouldn't have a penis? Not really,
Do you agree with what I said? Yeah, right. That's what I was trying to suggest earlier on, that gender is in the head.
Yeah, I think it's in the head, we all think differently.
Yeah, but if you, before you came out, did you feel like a woman? I mean, in yourself, in your identity.
Can I just ask, Will?
Yeah.
That kind of, I got a bit puzzled when you did your lecture thing, and I thought, what does it actually mean to feel like a woman? How are you going to define that? Is it not essentialist? Do you think, or I would ask Drew as well, does it just mean feel like a woman, you're happy to have boobs or want to have boobs? Does it just have to do with physical stuff?
No, I think with the whole transgender, it ranges, it's what the actual condition is called gender dysphoria, which is what I have, which is what makes transsexual. It depends how much gender dysphoria you have. You'll get some people who have a lot, who want to completely transform their body to look like a female. You'll get people with some who are happy being half and half. You'll get people that want to be a woman but they don't want to take hormones, it ranges. And for me, I just think like a woman, I don't.
But how does a woman think? How does
I think exactly how you think.
Well, that can't be true, can it? I mean, all women think that.
Well, no, do you know what I mean? Would you want to wear, if you was...
Okay.
Now, for example, Drew, I wear trousers, I've got short hair, I'm not as beautifully made up as you, I'm a woman. So how can you generalise what a woman's like or what a woman feels?
Can I interject? When you look in the mirror and what you see doesn't match with what you feel in your head and what you feel in your heart, that's feeling like one and looking like the other. And no, you can't necessarily define it, but it's how you feel.
Yeah.
The two don't match up with each
But
other.
society, society knows you as a woman, and you want to be known as a woman. Drew wants to be known as a woman. Ollie wants to be known as a man. It's just a need for society to see you as that. Is that right?
I think, did you before you came out properly, would you have an outfit that would make you feel like a woman? I used to have certain outfits that I would wear, and I'd lock myself in my room before we went out clubbing, say, and I'd put them on and I'd tuck a vest in, dead tight, pull my pants right up, try and get my hips in, and I'd put on this pair of shoes, and as soon as they were on, I was a man, because they were men's shoes, and that's how I felt. So, and to me I don't know, it's you'd have certain things that would make you feel and make you think I was a man. It would make me think I was a man, because you'd get up in the morning and put on a pair of shoes that you bought in the men's section, and they socially would make him a man. If he went out in high heels, everyone would be sort of yeah, he's got a suit on, and so it is about social perceptions as well.